Alright, so in this video we're going to have a look at the 5 ways to repel bad apples. It's not actually that difficult. If you put enough obstacles in their way that a dream client wouldn't actually see as obstacles, just would see as, you know, the start of a relationship, then you're going to put things in place that are going to mean bad apples just don't end up at your door. It starts with what I call onboarding, and what that really means is that it starts with insisting on a call prior to even agreeing on costs. What that does is put a barrier in the place of the bad apple, that a dream client would say, oh yeah, of course I want to talk on Skype before we kick things off. Of course you need to get things from me. Of course we need to do a discovery session. A bad apple would just kind of say, well, give me a price before I do that, because they're probably going out to 50 people that are going to be doing the same thing. So they don't have the time to invest in, you know, introductory calls, in mapping out visions, in understanding what their objectives are for the project. So by doing that, you're immediately setting yourself as different from the labourer, the person that's going to just take instructions. So that's the first thing. So the second point is reversing the pitch. It's asking them up front to say, okay, well, what does success mean to you on this? What will you look at afterwards and say, well, that was a good job, well done. What are your goals? What are your objectives for this? What's the big idea? What's the vision? By asking all these questions, you're going to really be able to firstly determine whether the person that you're talking to is going to be a good client, because they'll be saying the right things or saying the wrong things. And secondly, you're going to put barriers in the way of the bad apple who doesn't want to talk about all this stuff. They just want to talk about the features and the specifics and the price and the turnaround time. So that's the second thing. Reverse the pitch. Let them do the talking. Let them tell you what the big idea for this is. Let them tell you what they're looking for from a successful applicant. And in doing so, you'll figure out a few things about them, their mindset, and what they want out of this. And then you'll be able to align your proposal with that. So the third thing is something that we picked up from a Freelance Lift Q&A call recently from D. Non-Tenant. And his name's made up, he told me that himself. And it was to bill even before the project commences. So for that initial 1 hour strategy call, he bills $299. He values his service so much as a copywriter for conversion landing pages and for conversion in general. He values his service so much, values that initial dialogue so much, that he puts a $299 price tag on it. So before they've even entered into negotiation about what the actual project is going to cost, the person that's coming through the door needs to front up $299 to just begin the conversation. It's a great idea. It's very risky if you're depending on what kind of level you're at, but if you can demonstrate enough value through your site or through other means, then that's not going to be a big deal for a dream client. It's going to be a big deal for the bad apple. They will not pay it 100%. That's a guarantee. So if we're looking for ways to repel bad apples, that one is one, although it is quite daring because you'll catch some dream clients and some kind of midway people with that too. But definitely, if you believe in what you do, if your service and even speaking to you is so valuable that it's going to make a difference regardless of whether they go for the work or not, then bill for it. The fourth one then is to point blank refuse pay on results. Now that would really come into its own if you're a copywriter or a web designer that were really basing your whole pitch on the value it's going to bring to the table financially. And what you'll often get sometimes is clients will say, okay, well, split the risk with me. You say you're going to uplift me by $50,000 or £50,000 or whatever it is. You want to charge me £10,000 or $10,000. So how about I pay you $5 and then the rest it will come if you make that result. Just point blank refuse it, because you know your service is valuable. What you're bringing to the table, what you're actually applying to that client's business should hit those numbers, but you're not responsible for guaranteeing that. You're not responsible for what comes after your service. So you should point blank refuse on pay on results. It's a red alert, a red flag for bad apple clients. And the fifth one, again, another recent podcast interviewee, Paul Jarvis, who's a web designer by trade, written 4 or 5 books, he's a speaker, builds workshops, pretty much does everything. But his main trade is designer, as I say. One of the things he does is books himself months and months in advance. And then on his website, it literally says, not currently accepted any work until insert date 6 months into the future. And then what he does is build a list, build a group of people that might eventually want his services. Then he'll email them and say, look, I'm opening my calendar in March, whatever it might be, 6 months in advance, and he gets bookings on that. Flip that and think about what might happen if a bad apple came to your site and saw, calendar's not open for another 3 months or 4 months. Yeah, okay, I'll go somewhere else. Because, again, going back to what makes a good client, what makes a bad client will want it yesterday and for the cheapest possible price. And they will not be looking for people that are in their particular space. They'll be just absolutely spreading it across freelancer exchanges, Fiverr.com and all sorts of places like this. So they're not going to accept a long delay, and they're not going to value the fact that you have a long delay in the first place. So that's it, 5 ways to repel bad apples.